Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this short webinar on understanding the roles and responsibilities of the construction manager as constructor, also sometimes referred to as the CM at risk. This is just one of those slides that we have to go through. It tells you that this program is protected by copyright laws, and that the statements expressed are those of the speaker and not necessarily the AIA contract documents program or the AIA. And this is the most important of the notices, and that is that the information is not provided as legal advice. And this is me. I'll be your presenter today. My name is Ken Cobley, and I'm the Vice President and Counsel for the AIA Contract Documents Program. So we're going to do an overview of the CM as constructor or CM at risk delivery model and what some of the unique attributes are, particularly as they pertain to the construction manager. And I think that the best way to understand that program and the relationship between the various parties is to compare it against the conventional or design bid build delivery model. And so on your screen, you'll see what we call a relationship diagram. It shows the various contractual relationships between the project participants on a traditional or a conventional design bid build project. You can see that the owner is in the center of the diagram, and the owner is the one that is going to hold the key contractual relationships with the various parties. The owner has a contractual relationship with an architect who is going to be responsible for the development of the design of the project. And you can also see that the architect will engage consultants to help with the design portion of it. And then you can see that the owner also has a direct contractual relationship with a contractor to build the work, and the contractor may engage subcontractors and others to help with its obligations to construct the project. There's also a suggestion that the owner might engage other types of consultants to work on the project. For example, they may engage a geotech engineer or some other types of consultants, depending on the project, to help inform the owner and or to provide information to either the design team or the construction team. But all of that flows through the owner. And then you can see that the general conditions document, in this case, in the case of the AIA's contract documents, the A201, sort of binds the key participants together. It establishes many of the ground rules for the way the architect, the owner, and the contractor will interact. And you'll note under the A201 general conditions, we have a parenthetical that talks about with optional cost of work modifications as reflected in a PDF document that we published called the A503, and I point that out because you're going to learn that those optional cost of the work modifications will apply in the CM as constructor or CM at risk delivery model as well. So take one last look at this, and then we'll compare it to the relationship diagram for the CM as constructor. Well, there you have it. And you'll notice that the two relationship diagrams look very similar. The owner is still in the middle. The owner is going to engage an architect to design the project, and the architect will engage consultants. The owner is going to engage the CM, but you'll notice under the CMC designation, we've indicated that the CM as constructor is going to not only provide construction phase services, i.e. build the work, but also provide pre-construction phase services. And that is one of, if not the most significant difference between the CMS constructor delivery model and the traditional design bid build model. That is to say that the CM as constructor is engaged early in the project and provides pre-construction phase services, which we'll talk a little bit more about later, to help inform the owner and inform the design team about certain decisions that might be made with respect to the ultimate design and construction of the project. The CM may engage subcontractors to assist it in performing construction of the work. The owner may also, again, engage other owner direct consultants, just like in the design bid build delivery model. And here again, the relationship between the parties, the architect, the CM, and the owner, are largely bound together by the general conditions document, which in the AIA family is going to be the A201 general conditions. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about the optional cost of the work modifications that might be made to the A201. We'll get to that at the end. I should also point out that if you're interested in exploring some of the AIA's documents, the actual contract documents related to this delivery model, the numbers for those documents are indicated on this diagram. So for example, in this delivery model, the AIA's owner architect agreement is the B133, and the owner CM agreements are going to be either the A133 or the A134, depending on whether or not the project is going to be delivered using a cost of the work with a GMP or a cost of the work without a GMP. And you can find all samples of all of those documents on the AIA website, and we'll provide the reference information for you at the end of the program. I should also mention that if you have any questions as we proceed, please enter them in the chat box, and time permitting, we'll try to go through those questions at the end of the program. So, as I mentioned, one of the big, if not the most important differences between the CMS constructor delivery model and the design bid build delivery model is what happens during the pre-construction phase. So, just like in design bid build, in the CM as constructor delivery model, the owner is going to retain an architect, and the architect and its consultants are going to develop the design and prepare the drawings and specifications that will be used for construction of the project. But unlike the design bid build delivery model, in the CM as constructor model, during the pre-construction phase, the owner is also going to retain the construction manager, and the construction manager is going to advise the owner, and through the owner, the design team, about various types of issues associated with the potential choices that they're going to make for the design, and will provide things like cost estimating and other pre-construction services, including things like early scheduling and constructability review. Then during the construction phase, the CM is going to engage in activity that is very similar to a general contractor. They're going to award work to the subcontractors and suppliers. They're going to enter into contracts with the subcontractors. They're going to issue purchase orders when necessary. And they're going to pretty much assume the contractor role under the A201. And as I said before, depending on the contract model, they're either going to get paid based on the cost of the work plus a fee with a guaranteed maximum price if they're using the A133 contract, or they're going to be paid on the basis of cost of the work plus a fee, but without a guaranteed maximum price if they're using the A134 model. And we'll talk a little bit about the distinctions between cost of the work with or without a guaranteed maximum price in a few minutes. So why use this delivery model? What are the key attributes? Well, there's a single party, the construction manager, that provides construction management advice in the pre-construction phase. So early on, not only do they provide input, but they're becoming familiar with many of the design elements that will ultimately be incorporated in the final plans and specifications for the project. And then with that familiarity, we'll either prepare a guaranteed maximum price proposal or prepare a control estimate to let the owner know what the anticipated cost for construction is, and then complete construction. So, as I said before, during the pre-construction phase, they're going to provide what we sometimes refer to as design assist services. And we're going to talk in a little bit about the difference between design assist and delegated design, because those two terms are often used interchangeably in the industry, but they have very different meanings and they have very different obligations. The pre-construction phase services might include things like cost estimating to make sure that the design is staying within the owner's budget for the cost of the work, constructability review, looking at various elements of the design to determine whether or not constructing the elements as designed is feasible, and or if there's a better design that would be easier to construct and get to the same place. And there's a whole lot of other things. They may identify early lead items that should be ordered well in advance of start of construction. The CM might do multiple schedules to determine how they might engage contractors to get the job done in the most efficient way, so on and so forth. There's a whole laundry list of potential items that the CM might engage in, using its construction experience to help inform the owner and / the design of the project and create a highly collaborative and well-informed process from the jump. Another attribute of CM as constructor or CM at risk delivery model is it is often possible to begin certain portions of the work before the design is finalized and or before either the control estimate is finished or before the owner and contractor have come to agreement on a guaranteed maximum price. Because the CM, who would be providing the work either directly or through subcontractors, has an understanding of the overall design and understands where the project is headed, they may be able to start things like site work or perhaps even foundation work or structural steel before the rest of the design is hardened up and or things have been fully priced, which can lead to more timely project delivery. Benefits, there we have it again, an overlap between construction and design and the ability to start early. This delivery model encourages greater collaboration between the design and construction teams. Early input into the design helps identify budget and constructability issues, and theoretically, it should minimize change orders. And at the same time, the contractor is maintaining typical contractor-subcontractor relationships. So let's talk a little bit about the terms we use design assist, and delegated design. Design assist in the CMC delivery model, design assist will almost exclusively happen during the pre-construction phase. Delegated design will happen during the construction phase. And that's because of the nature of those two different services and the responsibility that falls to the CM or the design team under the different scenarios. I just wanted to point out that a year or so ago, the AIA, in conjunction with AISC, which is the American Institute of Steel Construction, engaged in the development of a white paper to talk about the difference between delegated design and design assist. And the paper lays out a continuum with informal involvement at one end, then design assist, and then delegated design at the other end. And it sort of is an explanation of how the roles change between all three and where the roles and responsibilities and rights of reliance rest with those three concepts. And so if you're interested in that and the content of that white paper, which we hope will be used to sort of normalize or standardize those definitions, I would encourage you to download it either from the AIA's website or the AISC website. As the name suggests, informal involvement is just an informal exchange of information between a design professional and a contractor or some other two parties. There's typically no agreement, no compensation, and no expectation that the contractor will guarantee or be responsible for the accuracy of the information provided. Hence, it's just an informal sort of gut check that the architect might get to make sure that it's not going down the wrong path and wants some contractor friend or to give them sort of a second assurance. Design assist is more formal. It usually involves some sort of contractual agreement. And basically in design assist, and I'm going to use the term contractor, but in our scenario here, it would be the construction manager, provides information to assist the designs team, typically before the pricing for the work has been agreed upon. And the contractor can incur some contractual liability for the information provided, but the design professional is ultimately responsible for incorporating the contractor's information into the design and maintains professional responsibility for the adequacy of the overall design. And this is, I'm going to go through this quickly. In developing these materials, we interviewed a number of construction managers, and these are the types of services that they felt fell into the design assist kind of services. And this is an excerpt from the AIA document, the A133. I believe they're identical in the 133 and 134. And as you can see here, it sort of establishes the responsibility of the CM when it comes to design assist or pre-construction phase services. And it says that the owner and architect can rely on and not be responsible for the accuracy, completeness, or timeliness of the services and information provided by the construction manager. So the information has to be right. Having said that, though, again, the overall responsibility for the design, the adequacy and accuracy of the design, is going to rest with the design team. In delegated design, the design professional and the contractor establish, through the contract documents, have established a situation where the contractor is going to assume responsibility for the adequacy and accuracy of a particular element or portion of the design. The design professional has an obligation to create realistic and enforceable and performable performance specifications that the CM, contractor, sub, trade, will ultimately be responsible for implementing and preparing a full-blown design for, which may have to be signed and sealed and stamped if necessary. So the design team's responsibility is for the adequacy and accuracy of the performance specifications, i.e. that they can actually be accomplished, and the contractor is then responsible for the professional development of the design, as well as ultimately usually its construction. And so here's the division of responsibility in a little matrix when you have a delegated design situation. And this is an excerpt from the AIA's A201 document where it discusses how delegated design operates. And I'm not going to read it. It is essentially the contractual language that implements the obligations and relationship I just discussed. Let's talk a little bit about the cost of the work with or without a guaranteed maximum price. As I indicated, that's the usual way for construction manager as constructor contracts to operate. And I think the vast majority of them are with a guaranteed maximum price. So what's the difference between a stipulated sum and a cost of the work? In a stipulated sum, the cost of performing the work through final completion is all included in the stipulated sum. And that includes cost of correcting work, both as the project proceeds and during the correction period. And the stipulated sum also includes any overhead and profit that the contractor is going to make on the project. Cost of the work with a guaranteed maximum price, well, what's included? Costs incurred in performing the work through final completion, the cost of correcting work during the correction period, subject to the bent nail principle, and we'll talk about that in a second, and the CM's fees. And without a guaranteed maximum price, there's no cap to the CM, so it involves all of that, but they just keep billing, and there is no real cap on what can be billed by the CM for cost. So this is a diagram that shows the difference. In guaranteed maximum price situation, you have the cost of the work and you have the contractor's fee, and there's usually a delta or a contingency before you get to the guaranteed maximum price. But once the billings reach the guaranteed maximum price, that's all that the CM is entitled to be paid for the cost of the work for doing. They have to finish the project at and be paid no more than the cap of the guaranteed maximum price. Whereas if you're doing it cost plus without a GMP, then the cost can continue to keep escalating so long as they fall within cost to be reimbursed. So we mentioned that the A201 is sort of the general conditions document that ties this all together. When you use an A201, you may need to make some edits, and we've outlined all of those edits in a document that's available on our website. But contract sum may need to be replaced with the term guaranteed maximum price, and overhead and profit may need to be replaced with the contractor's fee. In pure cost of the work, change orders only adjust the contract time and scope because there's no cap on the price on the contract sum, and adjustments are generally reflected in changes in a control estimate as opposed to in a change order. The bet-now principle simply means that under certain circumstances, the contractor or CM may be entitled to be paid for corrective work. And I'm showing here an excerpt from the A133 that explains what those conditions are. And again, I'm not going to read it, but it's pretty straightforward. And so if you're interested in that, I would recommend that you check these section numbers out and take a look at this principle. So under stipulated sum, the contractor is going to be paid the sum to perform the work, and that's got to include any costs of correction. Under a cost of the work scenario, the contractor is going to be paid based on the actual cost of construction plus a fee up to perhaps a guaranteed maximum price. But because there's no built-in contingency necessarily in a cost of the work project for corrective work, the corrective work may, under certain circumstances, as outlined in the terms for the bet now, be reimbursable to the contractor. Under cost of the work projects, particularly with the GMP, the parties often use a shared savings clause. And that means that sometimes the CM or a contractor may be entitled to a percentage of the difference between the actual cost of the project and the guaranteed maximum price. But what does that do? It incentivizes the CM to effectively manage the project, keep the costs down, and then the CM is rewarded by getting pure profit on the savings and a portion of the savings that it achieved rather than spending up to the GMP. I have this slide in here just to mention that we have recently published some forms, G702 and G703, that you can use for cost of the work projects. They're a little bit different than the standard G702 and G703 forms. Now, there are a number of resources that you might refer to on the AIA contract documents website, some FAQs and some other portions of those documents that will help you understand how those contracts operate. If you're interested in a 5-hour webinar on a deep dive into some of the issues associated with construction management delivery models, it's available through the AIA website here. And I would also mention that the American Bar Association Forum on Construction Law has published a book that looks at the 2019 revisions we made to the AIA contract documents. Also, some more resources for help and information. And we have a few minutes left. Costi, I'll turn it over to you to see if we have any questions in the chat.
What is the best form for the design assist?
The best form for design assist. Well, you can either use the 133 or 134 if you're doing CM. We are in the process of developing and will release at the end of this year an actual standalone document that can be used in any delivery model to pull in one or more contractors to provide design assist services. But for now, either the 133 or the 134 will work for design assist services in the context of CMS Constructor. And similarly, the CMS Advisor family of documents will also include design assist services by the CMS Advisor. It's a different delivery model, but many of the concepts are the same for pre-construction services.
Is there a standard size, project size for design assist?
No, because the concept can carry over anywhere. One would think that it's not a small project scenario, but anytime the owner or the project participants are interested in having early collaboration between somebody with construction knowledge and the design team, and you can use Design Assist because you're looking for a constructability review, cost estimating, those kinds of things that are going to help inform the overall design. So anytime that's cost efficient, you can use Design Assist.
Okay, and with that, we'll conclude today's webinar. Thank you very much, Ken.